Guess what time it is? We're going to talk about the website template. And this is going to be a deep series. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know to become an expert at Next.js website development in general, but it comes with a full CMS and a full backend. So this is kind of like it's a starter kit. It's a starter website kit, but walking away from this tutorial series, I want you to know everything there is about building a high-end modern Next.js front-end, statically rendered, live preview, forms, redirects, sitemaps, on-demand revalidation, everything. And what I have on my screen right here is the code for the website template. You can see that this is the payload repo. I've got it starred. Somehow we're already at 30,000 stars. I don't know when that happened. Time is going quick. But anyways, we have this magical folder called templates. And the website template in specific has all the code. So you'll see I'll run a command and start one of these up, but basically it just copies all these files and puts them on your machine. So if you want to look at the code and just poke around, you can go here and check it out on our repo. But let's get started. Here I am in my old school terminal that I get mocked for all the time. I like it, don't judge. But I can run one command and get the website template started. So pnpx create-payload-app at latest. And it's going to prompt me for a project name. So I'm going to say website template demo. And then we're going to choose the website template here. And I'm going to use MongoDB because I have it running. You can use whatever, SQLite, Postgres. Doesn't matter. But this is going to do everything we need for the website. Dependencies installed. Let's cd change directory into website? What did I call it? Here we go. And now I can open up a code editor, just code period, in that folder. And I've got it over here, so I need to bring it over here and then move it over to here. All right, I use spaces as well on Mac. I like it. You might not. I don't care. I like it. I'm going to zoom in a couple times, and here we go. All the files that we need for a full Next.js front end and payload. And so basically just copied all these files, like I said, put them in a new folder. And now I can go over here and run pnpm dev right away. Now this does assume that I have a MongoDB running, so you'll want to keep that in mind. If you don't have one, you might want to use SQLite or Postgres or whatever you're comfortable with. But the big takeaway here with this website template is that it's not only a payload app, like it's a full payload instance set up to run a website. It's got pages, posts, media, categories, users, all the stuff you need for any website. But it's also got a full front end. And the front end is built entirely with server components and with Tailwind. So if you're getting started in this world, or you're looking to learn about server components and the difference there and all the new Next.js features, this template has all of it for you ready to go. But overall, the big takeaway here is that these are living next to each other. This is payload, the entirety of payload. It all runs in this one app folder here. And then in addition to payload, you have a full front end app running right next to it. So if I go back to the browser over here, you can see that I have a new create your first user screen. So I'm just going to sign up real quick, log in. And now the first thing you'll see, the website template has this little custom component here that kind of gives you some instructions on how to get started with the website template. First thing, seed your database. Right now you can see I don't have any pages, I don't have any posts, no media, but we have a seed function that I can click this seed your database, and it's going to get me started with some demo content. So I just database seeded. Now I can go over to the website, but I can actually go to pages now and I will have new pages created. Home, contact, I've got some posts, I've got some media here. I've got everything that seed function just gave me. Think of the seed function as a way to quickly get started with a blank database. This developer approach really helps if you have a team of 10 people that are working and adding features and going crazy and you want to get them started quick. A seed function is really, really helpful. But like I said, this is a custom component right here. So if I show you what that looks like in the payload config, you can drop custom components anywhere in the payload admin panel. It's just this. If I deleted this or I commented it out, let's comment that out, and now it'll be gone. And if I bring it back in, it'll be back just like that. So the seed function gave me all this stuff. I can go and just destroy everything, hello, I am a maniac. Cool. And I can save this, but let's say you want to get restarted back from a fresh slate. The seed function also clears the database and it resets you back to what it was. So it's a handy tool. The seed function itself is actually functioning in our case as an endpoint because we wanted to make it easy. Like you can click a button and then it does the seed directly. You could have it like do a startup seed or whatever, but basically this seed function, it's going to go through and it's going to clear the globals and it's going to map over the collections and delete all of the documents from the collections. And then it's going to delete all the versions and it's going to delete the user. And then it's going to go fetch some images and it's going to recreate all the images here and blah, blah, blah. Just basically creating a bunch of documents for you to test with. So I always recommend to build a development workflow like this with your own content. You can see we have like the homepage data here. And then if you want to change this and update it to your shape after you add blocks and similar, you can do that. Or you can delete the whole thing. It doesn't really matter. Do what you want. But the seed function, I believe it's mounted. Let's see, where is it? I believe we put it in the front end. Next, seed. Yeah, here's a custom route. It's a post request. And it just goes through and makes sure you're authenticated and whatever. But you can just delete all this stuff if you want. If you don't want to use the seed function, just go ahead and delete all of it. You know what? Let's do that actually. Let's just blow out this whole seed folder, the endpoint at least. Delete that. And then we have to go and what else do we have? What do we want to clean up here? Let's get rid of these components. Delete those. And then let's go and go into our endpoints. And so there's a whole bunch of files. I think that this home static is actually used by the homepage template, I believe. Let me see if that is true. What do we got here? Okay, let's try to delete it and see what happens. I think I have to take care of one thing manually here. Yep, failed to read, seed, home static. Where is that being referenced? Let's find it. Okay, yep, home static. Yeah, so see this right here. Let's get rid of that. Goodbye. Const page, get rid of that. Okay, get rid of that. Okay. Now we're a little cleaned up. And you see, that's kind of the point of this whole template here is that you can basically just make it your own immediately. Now, it does come with a lot of cool things. In this video, I just want to show some of the high-level overviews of what this template comes with. For example, like you can start all of this stuff from scratch on your own. You can build your own front end. You can build your own collections from scratch. It's kind of up to you if you want to do from scratch or start with this website template. But what we find when we build new websites, we have to wire up the same things over and over, like live preview, right? So this is really cool. I can see what I'm doing as I type changes here. Well, if we were going to start from scratch, I just got to kind of write this boilerplate every time. And it's nice to have it just out of the box, even though we do give you a lot with this template and it can be overwhelming. It's all kind of there for a good reason. So this is the front end. I just showed it to you in the live preview, but you can actually go over to the website as well. And we have this nice little top logged in bar here, but this is all Tailwind and React Server components. And so if I wanted to show you React Server components and how that works in the front end, this is our page. If we look at our folder structure here inside of front end, we have like a catch-all route for slug. So every page will be rendered here. And then we have posts, which render in the posts folder, right? So I could click on one of these posts and go see the post itself. That's going to render a different page, right? So like if I show you where that's going to render, that's going to be posts slug. That's going to be this page. And these things do different things. Like this is going to go fetch a post, whereas this is going to fetch a page from Payload. So like here's a post, but here is a page. And these two things are built differently. They have different layout building mentalities. I'm going to talk about that in a second video, but let's stick with the front end pages. So just taking a quick look through this, this is a server component. There's no use client at the top. And this does a lot of things. So this is the entry point to our pages. Of course, we have that layout at the top level, the Next.js layout. Here we're doing a few things before we even get to that page, like adding the HTML tag. We're doing class names, using Geist Sans as the font, initializing the dark mode, light mode, bringing in the favicons. We have some providers that provide a couple different utilities like the theme and the header theme, etc. I'll get into that more in the future. We have an admin bar. This component here renders this up here. It's nice for your editors because they can then like quickly click into the CMS and just go there directly, right? And it only shows for logged in people. So if I went to incognito, you don't see that logged in bar. But if you're logged in, you'll see it. Pretty cool. Got the header and the footer in this layout. But then the page is responsible for fetching the page data from payload. And it's responsible for rendering the components that make up a page. The header and the footer come from the layout, right? Right here, the header and the footer. But the page itself renders a hero, which is like this thing. And then it renders blocks, which are like the layout building components. And it's really important to fully understand this. And for that, I'm going to pull up Figma and I'm going to show you kind of like a design document, like how you would go about designing a website for Payload. What we like to do, this is a website that my agency designed a long time ago, but it has the same principles in mind. Everybody knows how this part works, right? You have all the page layouts and you have a beautiful website in Figma and it looks great. And there's all kinds of variety, layout variety. There's different page templates. It looks different. Like here's a simple template with a tile grid and a call to action, whatever. But these are not actually hard-coded layouts. These are made up of heroes and layout blocks. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so let's just, scrolling through, there's all kinds of variety here. Everybody knows how that part works. But the magic comes in when you actually go to like kind of disseminate the different pieces that can be reused. So you can see we have heroes and then we have layout blocks. Heroes are like the first thing on the page. I don't know why it's called hero. I really don't. But it's the first thing on the page, does a lot of work. Mobile, desktop, whatever. And then we have a high impact content grid. And then we have a medium impact with a couple different varieties, whatever. This one's got an image. Then we've got a form, right? So if you have a page that needs a form, like a landing page or something. Then we have the low impact hero, which is just text. And then we have a very simple hero, right? So heroes are like the first thing on the page. And then we have layout blocks. And layout blocks are like, here's a content layout block. You can choose which columns you want. 2/3, 1/3, 3 columns, 4 columns, whatever, dark mode. And then we have a content grid. These are all the layout building blocks. So each one of these things will be represented in Payload, and it will be represented on the front end with a React component. And so you have the hero and the layout blocks. And that's what I showed you here. This renders the hero. It's fully typed coming from Payload. I'll get back to that in a second. And then you have blocks. And the blocks will iterate over all the blocks that the admin chose, and then it will output the component that corresponds to that specific block. So over in Payload, going here, you see we have tabs that line up directly to those two things. This is a really good way to build websites. If you build it like this, then you don't have to hard code templates. Going back to like this like overview page, it would be a nightmare if you had to hard code all these different layouts with all these different options. Rather, build each individual block and then let your admins compose them however they want. These are very explicitly designed blocks, but these pages are not templates. They're built with layout blocks. And if you can design like this, and if you can translate into controls that are easily expressed in a simple to use CMS, that's how you build a maintainable website. These are not templates. So we've got the hero, that's this. And then below that hero, we have the layout blocks, which are these. So here's a content block, that's this. Then we have a media block, and I can go here and I have a different field. I can swap this out. Let's choose another one. My team, I don't know if you heard that in this video, but they just literally screamed in the background in the office. That's Jake. What a guy. But then we have the archive, and then we have the call to action. And you can see that you can drag and drop these blocks in different orders, and it just instantly will work. Everything just works. But you build it with this mentality, and you translate it into these controls. So how does that work in the code side of the world? Well, we have these two components. But before we get to the front end, let's look at Payload. So let's go to the pages collection. We've got authentication, we've got our access control, we've got some controls here I'll get back to in a later video. But here's the layout field. This is the layout builder where you can choose from the blocks that you have registered. So the website template gives you these 5 blocks. And if I go back over here and I go to content, get rid of that quick, click on add layout, here's the 5 blocks. If you added more in this array, they would appear here for your use. And each block has 2 parts. It's got the fields. So here's the call to action block. That's this one right here. This block right here is really simple. All it has is a rich text field, and it has a link group, which allows you to specify a couple links, 1 link, whatever, and that's this button. So this is the payload side. Remember I said there's 2 parts to every block. There's the payload config for the block. Really simple. We have a rich text field, and then we have a shared link group field that we can reuse. And then you have the front end component. So there's the back end and the front end. The back end shows what fields to edit for this block, and the front end uses Tailwind and React Server components to render the content of that block. So the fields in payload, field 1, field 2, those correspond to props here in your React component. And these props are fully typed. So you have end-to-end type safety out of the box with payload, just like that. And that way, when your editors go and compose blocks, they have a certain set of controls for a call to action block, and they have a certain set of controls for a media block, and content has columns, whatever you want to do. But you can basically craft any design system that you want. And the same thing goes for the hero, except for we kind of do it a different way for the hero. We have a type where you select which type, and then based on whatever type you select, you get different fields. It's conditional logic. So if I click on low impact here, you'll see that this one kind of looks a little bit different. If I click on high impact, it goes back here, and I can go to medium impact. This is just to show you the template, like the approach. You don't need to keep these hero styles. You can delete all of it. Like for example, this website has different hero styles. So we would have to go through, and if I can scroll up and find these, yeah, right here. We would want to build a React component for this hero template. We'd have to build a React component for this one, and then a React component for this one. And each one of these would have the front end React component as well as the back end payload config. And then how that looks in code, if we go back over to the pages collection, I showed you that we have tabs. You don't need that either. It's nice, I think. Hero, content, SEO, just the organization is nice. But the hero is inside of a tab, and it's one field. So if I go look at this field, it's a group, and it has a type field. The type is where you set all your different hero options. And then based on whatever you want, you can show and hide different fields based on whatever type it is. And then on the front end, when we go to render that hero, you see we just spread the hero as the props. So this component takes the page hero props. We're importing that page type. Payload gives you TypeScript types for everything. So if I show you, here's our page type, here's our hero, you can reuse this type. Payload automatically generates this in the background, and it's fully typed. So this hero has that type that corresponds exactly to what we chose. And then we have the fields that could be potentially on that hero. So when we go to render that, we can go in here and we say, okay, let's get the type from the props. And we know that the type is there because we've typed it. So I can actually hover this and it will say what type it is. And then we grab whatever hero it is off of this keyed object. So like here's the 3 types, right? And based on this type, we can grab the hero to render and then spread the props into it. And it will dynamically render whichever hero we have selected. This is a very extensible pattern. Imagine if you wanted to fill this up with your own heroes, you would just like my new hero is my new hero component. And then you're done. So the same thing works with the blocks. If you go into blocks, you can see that blocks are going to map over. Like the blocks in payload, this is an array. So it's an array of blocks. If I show you the API over here, let's see, close up hero. There's an array of layouts, right? The first layout is content. The second layout is media block. The third layout is archive. The fourth layout is CTA. And so what this component does, this render blocks component, if you have blocks, if it's an array, then we're going to map over the blocks. We're going to get the block type, and it's, again, fully typed. And then we get the block that corresponds with this block type off of this little map that we made up here. So in order to add new layout blocks, you just add them to this list. Then we get the block off the map type, or the mapped components up here, and we render it. And there you go. So that's it. And with that, imagine you have, like, when you launch the site, you have 6 blocks maybe, or 7, but you want to add additional blocks, additional Legos in your Lego blocks, whatever, as you build into the future. You just add them. You don't have to change anything else. The other ones are bulletproof. Those ones exist. You've already built them. You've already tested them. Adding additional blocks and adding features to your CMS is done in a very extensible way that you can maintain into the future. Okay, so now I just want to do a quick speed round through a couple of the bigger features that we've built into this template, and then in later videos in this series we'll go through and talk about each one of these in further depth. But the first thing I just want to quickly shine a light on is that this entire website template is statically rendered, and you should be doing that wherever you can with Next.js websites in specific. You can opt into further complexity in the future, but I think that statically rendering is a very good thing to do. So right here, our page, this is a server component like I showed, and we're using this little utility that we made to query a page by slug. So we're grabbing the slug from the params, and that's from here, right? Query by the page slug. This is a function that we're using React cache to deduplicate, because we actually use this function in 2 places in this one file. We use it for the page, and then we also use it for the metadata. And we don't want to query twice, so by wrapping it with React cache, that will deduplicate these queries on a request by request basis. And it just makes things a little bit snappier. But we're getting the page, basically. We're returning the page, and from there, we can actually use it in both places simultaneously. And that page is fully typed. It's all TypeScript. But the important part here is this generate static params function. This is what allows us to statically render this whole page, right? The whole thing from this point on is going to be saved as a static HTML snapshot. So when your users go to these pages in your browser, you're going to download a static HTML file rather than downloading like an entry point and then having to make database queries to fill up the HTML with dynamic data every single time, making queries every single time, right? So this generate static params does something similar to this right here, but it actually gets the first 1,000 pages. Draft false, we only want the published to generate statically. Get 1,000 pages and select only the slug. We don't need to select all the data for 1,000 pages. We can select just the slug. This is very performant. It works on the database level, so it's going to make a tiny little query. It's still going to give you a lot of JSON because you're taking 1,000 pages, but right here, it'll be typed automatically. And then what we can do is we can just return, okay, we don't want to do the home page. That's going to be statically rendered separately over here. But we do want to map over all the slugs and return the static parameters for each page. And in this case, it's just the slug property that we need to map to. But right here with this, when you deploy your website, it's going to be statically rendered, and it's going to be blazing fast. Get good Lighthouse scores, and Google will smile on you for being an adult and making a performant website. But outside of that, the same practice works for posts as well. So if we go over here, you'll see the same idea. We're going to generate static params for posts, and it's got a slug field, so we're doing slug again right there, just like that. And we've deduplicated with query post by slug instead of query page by slug, right? So same idea, but you're going to have to wire this stuff up. Might as well just have us do it for you. And then from there, the important part when you're statically rendering is to make sure that when an admin saves a page, they can instantly see their changes, right? And you know, I showed you that we do have the preview link over here, but the preview link is only one part. What if like the CMO was just browsing on their phone and they went to the website and they were like, hey, I thought you updated this, but it's not updated. You don't want to tell them, oh, sorry, it's statically rendered and you're not going to be able to see it for 10 minutes until it revalidates. No, forget about that. Payload, this website template in specific, comes with everything you need for on-demand revalidation. And it's really simple. If we scroll down to the hooks on pages, for example, you'll see we have one hook for revalidate page. After change, run this function. Basically, after a page changes, run this function. And this function right here is pretty simple. We got a little helper to opt out of revalidate in certain places, like the seed function. You don't need that. You can delete it if you want. But if the document is published, then call revalidate path on the path for that page. And also rebuild the page's sitemap. And that's it. And then if it was previously published and it's no longer published, then revalidate the old path rather than the new path incoming. And that's it. So just right there, when admins save, Next.js will rebuild the page on demand without having you to have to redeploy the entire front end of your website separately. Outside of just the static rendering and the on-demand revalidation and all that kind of like logistical stuff, we do have a bunch of plugins that we install on your behalf. So these are all official Payload plugins. There's a lot of plugins out there that you can install. You just basically add them to an array and pass them to the Payload config. But here's a redirects plugin. That gives you redirect control directly in the CMS. All this is wired up for you so you can publish redirects directly here. That's wired up. We've got nested docs, so you can have nested categories and have multiple like parent category, subcategory, stuff like that. And then you can build up URL structures for those. We have the SEO plugin, which I think I showed a little bit. Going over to posts, you can see there's an SEO tab here with all kinds of SEO friendly goodies out of the box. We have form builders. So everything you need for a form building like interface is all built into Payload. So I can go here and show you the contact form. Got 4 fields out of the box, triggers a redirect message or a message or a redirect. And then you can even send emails with the data from the form that was submitted dynamically. I think we show that on the contact page here. Yeah, this form looks like garbage. We'll make it look better. But yeah, you can do that. All kinds of good stuff out of the box there. You can use this as a layout building component as well by, I think, going over here, content. Yeah, here's a form block. So you can plop a form anywhere you want on any page. Very powerful. And then we use React Hook Form on the front end to actually manage those forms and render them. But all that stuff comes out of the box. The big thing here is just don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of stuff here. You can go hard and delete whatever you want. But there are a lot of reasons why this is a very fully featured template that's meant for you to have a starting point where you can pick it up and build quickly, build whatever you need, remove what you don't need, and just make it happen quickly. But I'm going to go into all these features in further depth in the coming videos. So if there's something you want me to cover in specific, please put it in the comments and I'll do my best to address each one. And subscribe to the channel so that you stay in the loop when we do release these new videos in this series. Thank you.